I do not believe what just happened. Following a recent video I made on the absolutely insane new recommendations for blood pressure control from the American Heart Association and American College of Cardiology. And yes, in my opinion, they are absolutely crazy. They are unnecessarily strict. And in my video, which I know many of you watched, it gained a lot of traction. I listed what my concerns were, and clearly it angered a lot of people, including some representatives of the American Heart Association. And I received a communication by email from somebody who worked for the American Heart Association, and he was not pleased at all. He said that he wanted to correct false information. Now, to be fair, this particular email was perfectly polite, it was cordial, and I was brought up to be a gentleman. And I always appreciate it when somebody who thinks differently from me or somebody who represents an organization which I don't agree with, and in this case, I think the American Heart Association and American College of Cardiology, at least a lot of their leadership, are complete lunatics. That's my own opinion, but I appreciate it when anyone tries to reach out to me because that should always be done. So at least he sent me a very polite communication, very worried about the false information which was in my video, which gained a lot of traction. So I get the email and I thought, wow, an email from the American Heart Association. Did they go over my concerns and what have they got to say for themselves? And I want you to stay till the end when I will go over my main problem with their email, which again was perfectly polite, and I thanked them for the communication. So I looked at the email, I started reading it, and it was very clear that the person writing the email was very concerned with the couple of sentences that I mentioned in my video, which remember was not even the main point of my video, but I did mention the controversy over the founding of the American Heart Association and a donation from Procter & Gamble, which manufactured certain processed cooking products, including vegetable oils. And this controversy has been going on for over 75 years. This has been known, it's been talked about a lot online. And I, of course, read the stories that, yes, Procter & Gamble arranged a donation of around $2 million at the time, maybe just under $2 million. But in today's money, that's over $20 million. So it's a natural question, well, isn't it concerning that following their donation, the American Heart Association and cardiologists across the United States started recommending vegetable oils as heart healthy? But anyway, this particular email took issue with that. And what the person was saying that over 75 years ago, apparently Procter & Gamble was only marginally involved and the donations came from private individuals. And he said that this was false information. Okay, fair enough. And I will be perfectly happy here, as I have done, to tell you what their defense is. And maybe that happened. Who knows? It was 75 years ago. But regardless, that's something which has been widely thought for some time. The person writing the email also wanted to clarify from me that the vast majority, I think it was over 80%, maybe 85%, of the American Heart Association's donations come from private individuals and not corporations. Okay, fair enough. But again, they're a multi-billion-dollar organization. By the way, does anybody want to explain to me how a heart association, which you would think is all about charity, becomes a multi-billion-dollar organization? But regardless, that's what he said in the email, and I'll take that at face value. But even then, if 15 or 20% is coming from corporations, that could still be hundreds of millions of dollars. I haven't got all of their figures, but it's not negligible by any means, and you would still want to question conflicts of interest. But the biggest issue, which I think also confirms my suspicions of the clown world that we live in when it comes to healthcare, medical leadership, but especially physician societies, is that I received this email saying that my video had false information. 95% plus of my video was about my concerns about really strict blood pressure control, saying that a blood pressure where the systolic number, the top number, is 124 or 125 is elevated, because that's what they're now saying. And I explain this in the video. I'll include a link at the end for anybody who hasn't seen it, saying that a slightly elevated blood pressure above 120 is elevated, and I shouldn't even call it elevated. That for decades was considered a normal blood pressure, even up to the 140s was considered an okay blood pressure. But it's very clear that our societies are getting stricter and stricter, and I have enormous concerns about the implications of this, because I see problems, especially in older people all the time who are over-medicated and they have low blood pressure, not enough blood is getting to the brain, they feel drowsy, they fall. It's a huge concern of mine. So that was my concern. And you would think if I was getting a letter from the American Heart Association or email that they would address that, but they didn't say anything about that. They did not touch upon the main point of my email. I think they did mention in their email that they try to follow gold standard scientific consensus, whatever that means, consensus from academic institutions and studies which are financed by Big Pharma. We all know what consensus really means. But the other thing that they didn't want to defend at all was my point in the video that when they talk to people, or rather they recommend doctors talk to people about lifestyle recommendations, which they are maybe 2% in on. They're not really in on it at all. They were entirely focused on, let's reduce salt consumption. Let's reduce the amount of saturated fats, when actually the number one cause of high blood pressure nowadays is insulin resistance. Not in everybody, but nearly everybody, because we have a metabolic health crisis. So you would think that the American Heart Association and American College of Cardiology, these legions, hundreds, thousands of cardiologists, might think to themselves, hello, is anybody home in my brain? The main problems we're seeing every day are related to insulin resistance. Maybe we should tell Americans to cut back on, let's be quite frank, the insane amounts of sugar and carbs and processed foods they are eating, which are leading to insulin resistance and weight gain. You might think that there might be a little line about that. Talk to your patient about cutting back on sugar, because there's a 90% plus chance that that is devastating their metabolic health. It's all being converted into fatty acids via a process known as de novo lipogenesis. I'm getting scientific here, but the insulin resistance is what is absolutely devastating people and leading to conditions like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, prediabetes. We could go on. But why in their dietary recommendations would they not even make any mention of this and instead be all in on reducing salt intake and saturated fats? I mean, that's very 1980s and 1990s, don't you think? Well, actually, in the 1980s and 90s, people were still healthier, but that's before the whole of society had fallen off a cliff with their metabolic health, sadly. So no mention on that, the dietary guidelines, no mention on the actual numbers that I was concerned with, but this communication from the American Heart Association was all in on correcting some false information from a radio show from 75 years ago, and also clarifying where their donations come from, even though clearly tons of donations still come from big business and the pharmaceutical industry. That's all I've got to say about that. Again, I do appreciate communication, and if anybody else at the American Heart Association or American College of Cardiology ever wants to communicate with me, or better still, debate me on this issue, debate me live, absolutely. I am so confident that I could beat you in any debate with my logic. I don't think that you think logically. Maybe you avoid thinking logically. I think you're all in on certain things. I think you do whatever your masters tell you to do. But it's quite clear that if you're probed on what you're doing, there are massive concerns with your recommendations. You are so focused on the big pharma paradigm of fixing everything, even though it doesn't. Every single year, the rates of diseases go up. In this case, we're talking heart disease-related conditions. The number of prescriptions keeps going up. And this is why the whole system is failing. And to anyone at the American Heart Association and American College of Cardiology, the population is waking up. Your time is up. You better get back to being good doctors. Understand why you're here. Understand the principles of Hippocrates. It's not about pushing pharmaceutical products, ignoring what people are eating, ignoring somebody's baseline level of metabolic health. This was known for thousands of years until you went absolutely crazy over the last couple of decades. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Feel free to leave a comment down below. I enjoy hearing from all of you. Also, check in the links down below for my website, all the other work I do, including my MetThrive, insulin resistance reversal, and holistic natural fat loss program. Also, our natural health and well-being store, ohighwellness.com if you're in the USA, North America, ohighwellness.co if you're in the UK, Europe. If you enjoyed this video, you will also enjoy some of my other videos on how to naturally optimize metabolic health. Hit the like button if you like this video, hit the subscribe button for more similar videos on this channel in the future, and do share this video with anyone else who may be interested. We'll speak again very soon.